The order is already moving before anyone sees it. It exists first as a sequence of words arranged in a precise, approved pattern. The language is formal. The spacing is exact. Each line carries the weight of authorization, stamped and copied without alteration. It does not ask. It does not explain. It instructs. It travels along established routes, passing through hands trained to recognize its shape. It is received, acknowledged, recorded. No emphasis is placed on its meaning. Attention is given only to its accuracy. Each recipient confirms that it has arrived intact, unchanged from the version before it. Each confirmation is noted, then filed away. There is no urgency in its movement, only certainty. The system was built to carry orders like this one efficiently, without friction. The mechanisms engage as designed. Messages are relayed, schedules are adjusted, resources are aligned. The order integrates itself into existing routines, indistinguishable from the countless others that preceded it. No one pauses over the phrasing. No one rereads it for implication. The words are familiar in structure, if not in consequence. They resemble previous instructions closely enough to inspire confidence. The system recognizes the pattern and responds automatically. Clocks are synchronized. Forms are signed. Checklists are updated to reflect compliance. The order becomes a reference number, then a line item, then an assumption. It is repeated aloud in controlled environments, spoken without emphasis or hesitation. Each repetition strips it further of context, leaving only function. The order does not belong to any one individual. It is not owned or defended. It is simply present. Once issued, it no longer requires protection. The authority embedded in it is impersonal, distributed across every step of the process. By the time it reaches its final recipients, it arrives already validated by distance and procedure. There are no questions because none are required. The system was not designed to interrogate intent. It was designed to execute. Accuracy is measured by adherence, not outcome. Deviation is the only recognized risk, and this order invites none. The environment adjusts around it quietly. Movements align. Preparations advance. The order's influence expands as more components are brought into compliance. Each adjustment reinforces the assumption that the instruction is sound, because it exists, because it has passed through every necessary channel. Nothing about the order suggests uncertainty. Its language leaves no room for interpretation. It does not account for change, because change is not part of its design. It assumes stability. It assumes obedience. It assumes continuation. By the time the order reaches the last point in the chain, it has already been enacted in principle. What remains is only the physical act of following. The outcome is not anticipated, only scheduled. The process is complete. What follows has already been decided. The structure that receives the order is already prepared. It is a system built on layers, each one reinforcing the next through repetition and routine. Authority moves downward in measured increments, never skipping a step, never reversing direction. Each level exists to translate intent into execution without distortion. The clarity of the structure is considered its greatest strength. The order enters this structure cleanly. It is acknowledged at the top of each tier with identical language, recorded in identical formats. There is no visible tension in the exchange. The process has been practiced too often for that. Responsibility is divided precisely, ensuring no single point bears the full weight of consequence. Those who pass the order along do so without alteration. They are not expected to improve it. Their role is custodial. The integrity of the command depends on their restraint. Any deviation, however minor, would be documented as failure. Precision is valued above judgment. Within the system, the order becomes a reference point. Timetables are adjusted around. Personnel are reassigned according to predetermined rules. Equipment is allocated based on availability charts that do not account for circumstance, only requirement. Everything aligns neatly, giving the impression of control. The environment is disciplined and controlled. Voices are low. Movements are efficient. Every action follows an established protocol that predates the order itself. The system does not react emotionally. It absorbs instructions and redistributes them. No single individual sees the entire picture. Each component interacts only with what it is authorized to know. Information is compartmentalized, not to conceal intent, but to maintain efficiency. This separation ensures speed and consistency. It also ensures that no one is positioned to assess the order in its entirety. As the command moves downward, it gains momentum. Each successful transmission reinforces confidence in the system. The absence of resistance is interpreted as confirmation. Silence is not doubt. It is compliance made visible. Training has conditioned those involved to recognize obedience as stability. The chain functions best when uninterrupted. Any hesitation would introduce delay, and delay is treated as a threat. The system's safeguards are designed to eliminate friction, not uncertainty. Documentation multiplies as the order progresses. Each signature confirms not agreement, but receipt. Each stamp affirms process. not outcome. The paperwork creates an illusion of accountability while dispersing responsibility across so many hands that it becomes abstract. The order reaches deeper levels of the structure unchanged. It is repeated in briefings with neutral tone. It is incorporated into routines without ceremony. Those tasked with carrying it out understand their obligations clearly. Follow the instruction exactly as written. The efficiency of the system is undeniable. Everything functions as intended. The hierarchy holds firm, allowing no deviation, no reinterpretation. The order is now fully embedded within the structure. Once integrated, it cannot be removed without disrupting the entire chain, and disruption is not permitted. The execution begins without announcement. At the designated time, actions unfold according to schedule. Movements are synchronized by clocks that were aligned earlier, each second accounted for in advance. There is no moment of decision. The decision has already been translated into sequence. What remains is coordination. Signals are exchanged using standardized methods. Each acknowledgement is brief and procedural. Nothing is improvised. Each participant knows only the portion assigned to them, and that knowledge is sufficient. The order is not discussed. It is referenced. Units move when instructed to move. Equipment is activated when instructed to activate. Routes are followed exactly as prescribed. There is no allowance for adjustment, because adjustment was not authorized. The absence of flexibility is not perceived as a flaw. It is perceived as discipline. Communication remains precise and limited. Messages confirm position, timing, and compliance. They do not speculate. They do not evaluate conditions beyond what is required to confirm execution. Any information not requested by the order is excluded. The environment responds unevenly, but the response is irrelevant. The system does not measure success in real time. It measures adherence. Each completed step validates the next. Each confirmation pushes the sequence forward. Personnel perform their roles with practiced efficiency. Movements appear deliberate, almost mechanical. Training overrides instinct. Familiar procedures replace situational awareness. There is comfort in repetition. Familiarity reduces the need for thought. The order's language governs behavior completely. If the instruction specifies a position, that position is reached. If it specifies a time, that time is met. If it specifies coordination, coordination occurs. Precision is visible everywhere. Judgment is not. As execution continues, minor inconsistencies appear. They are noted but not emphasized. Reporting channels exist, but they are not designed to alter the information flows upward slowly, filtered through protocol, stripped of urgency by format. Nothing interrupts the sequence. The system interprets continued movement as confirmation that everything is functioning. Each successful action becomes evidence that the order remains valid. There is no mechanism to pause. Pausing would require authorization, and authorization would require doubt. Doubt has no procedural category. Those carrying out the order do not see deviation as an option. Deviation would require explanation, and explanation would require justification beyond the text of the command. The text is sufficient. It was approved. That approval persists. As the operation progresses, the distance between instruction and reality begins to widen. This is not immediately apparent within the system. Metrics continue to be met. Timelines hold. The surface appearance of control remains intact. Silence replaces uncertainty. Where questions might exist, they are absorbed by routine. Each individual focuses on completion. The larger sequence advances uninterrupted, propelled by compliance rather than awareness. The order continues to execute itself through the system, step after step, unchanged by context. The mechanisms designed to ensure success are functioning perfectly. The process does not slow. The sequence does not break. Nothing intervenes. The first indications appear as irregularities, not alarm. They surface quietly, embedded within routine reports that arrive formatted exactly as expected. Numbers align where they should. Timings are close enough to schedule to be considered acceptable. Language remains neutral. The structure receives the information and processes it without emphasis. What has changed is not immediately visible. The order continues to move forward, and because it moves forward, it is assumed to remain correct. The system is conditioned to interpret momentum as validation. As long as execution continues, the order retains its authority. Conditions begin to diverge from the assumptions that shape the instruction. This divergence is not dramatic. It emerges incrementally, through small deviations that fall within tolerances. Each one, taken alone, appears manageable. None are sufficient to justify interruption. Reports travel upward, but their content is constrained by format. They describe what is happening, not what it means. Any implication that extends beyond the scope of the is excluded. The language remains factual, restrained, procedural. Concern has no approved phrasing. At lower levels, adjustments would normally occur. In this case, adjustment is not authorized. The order specifies continuity. It does not account for variance. The system responds by maintaining alignment with the original instruction. Even as alignment becomes increasingly artificial, the first friction appears in coordination. Timings begin to compress. Dependencies tighten. Actions that were meant to occur independently now overlap. The structure compensates by accelerating, not reconsidering. Speed is easier to authorize than change. Communication grows denser but not clearer. More messages are exchanged, confirming status, requesting clarification that never arrives. Each request follows protocol, moving upward through layers that dilute urgency. By the time responses return, conditions have already shifted again. Despite this, the order remains intact. No revision is issued. None is expected. Revision would imply fault at the level of command, and the system is not designed to identify fault, only deviation. Since the order is still being followed, no deviation exists. Warnings appear indirectly. Resources are consumed faster than projected. Positions are reached later than planned. Coordination requires increasing effort. These signals are logged, categorized, and forwarded. They do not alter behavior. The order has no conditional language to accommodate them. The structure responds by reinforcing discipline. Additional confirmations are required. Procedures are reiterated. Compliance is emphasized. The assumption is that stricter adherence will restore alignment between plan and reality. It does not. The gap widens, but it widens internally. From the perspective of the system, everything remains under control. The order is still valid. The chain remains unbroken. Execution continues. At this stage, stopping would be more disruptive than continuing. Too many components are already engaged. Withdrawal would require coordination beyond what the structure can support. The system favors forward motion because forward motion preserves the appearance of order. The flaw is no longer theoretical. It is now operational. It manifests in missed connections, delayed responses, and growing strain. Yet the order persists, unchanged, because it has already passed every point at which it could have been questioned. The structure recognizes the strain but cannot name it. The order does not adapt. It advances. And with each step forward, reversal becomes less possible. The collapse does not announce itself. It arrives as a continuation. The system remains in motion, and because it remains in motion, it is assumed to be functioning. The order is still active. The chain is still intact. Every component is still responding, still reporting, still complying. What changes is scale. Interactions that were once contained begin to compound. Delays multiply rather than resolve. Resources that were expected to circulate become fixed in place, unavailable where they are needed next. The structure attempts to compensate by extending timelines and redistributing tasks, but these adjustments occur within the boundaries of the original instruction. They cannot address the instruction itself. Coordination fractures quietly. Units arrive where they were told to be, but not when they were told to be there. Others arrive on time to positions that no longer align with the sequence. Dependencies fail in sequence, each one triggering the next. The order remains unchanged, even as the conditions required for its success no longer exist. Communications become continuous. Channels fill with confirmations that no longer confirm stability, only activity. Reports describe progress that does not accumulate. Each action is completed, but the collective result does not advance. The system interprets this as complexity, not failure. Loss begins to register, not as a single event, but as accumulation. Assets are rendered unusable, capabilities diminish, coverage thins. These outcomes are documented in neutral language, categorized according to established metric. They are absorbed into the system as data points rather than warnings. There is no moment of realization. The structure does not pause to recognize a turning point. The collapse emerges from the same discipline that enabled execution. Every component continues to perform its function precisely, even as the function itself no longer contributes to coherence. Attempts to restore order occur automatically. Additional instructions are issued, but they are subordinate to the original command. They clarify procedure without altering direction. They reinforce compliance rather than reassessment. The assumption persists that proper execution will correct deviation. It does not. As coordination degrades, the distance between intent and outcome becomes irreconcilable. Movements intended to support now interfere. Actions meant to secure instead expose. The structure compensates by narrowing focus, reducing each task to its most basic requirement: follow the order. What cannot be reconciled is allowed to. The scale of loss expands beyond what the system can contain discreetly. Entire segments of the operation cease to contribute. The structure continues to record activity, but the entries no longer describe progress. They describe absence. No countermand arrives. No authority intervenes. The order remains valid because it has not been rescinded. Rescission would require acknowledgement that the structure itself produced the failure. The system does not possess a mechanism for that admission. As the collapse completes, it does so without spectacle. There is no singular moment of defeat. There is only exhaustion of capacity. The sequence runs to its end because it has no instruction to stop. When movement finally slows, it is not due to decision, but limitation. Resources are spent, connections are severed. The system reaches a point where continuation is no longer possible, not because it was prevented, but because nothing remains to move. The order has been executed in full. The outcome is total. What remains is not resolution, but aftermath, dispersed, undocumented in its entirety, too diffuse to assign to any single action. The structure absorbs the result as it absorbs everything: reports, revisions, and silence. The chain holds. The system survives. The order is complete. In the period that follows, the system closes around the absence. Records are finalized. Timelines are adjusted to reflect completion rather than outcome. The order is marked as executed according to procedure, its reference number archived among others that share the same formal conclusion. No distinction is made between success and failure at this stage. The structure recognizes only whether an instruction was followed. Briefings resume their normal cadence. Language is measured, impersonal. The collapse is not described directly. It is referenced through reductions, reallocation, and revised assumption. Loss is translated into administrative necessity. Gaps are explained as temporary conditions requiring accommodation. Responsibility disperses naturally. Each segment of the structure accounts for its own actions and no further. Reports confirm adherence to protocol. Deviations are noted only where they occurred downstream of instruction, never upstream. The order itself is not revisited. It has already passed beyond scrutiny. Those who remain continue to operate within the same framework. Positions are filled. Equipment is reassigned. Schedules are restored where possible. The routines that were interrupted resume, slightly altered to accommodate reduced capacity. The system adapts in form, not in principle. Documentation expands to contain the consequences. New procedures are drafted, not to address the order, but to prevent secondary effects from interfering with future operations. Language is cautious, deliberately narrow. Nothing implies fault in the structure itself. Silence becomes standard. The event is not discussed openly. It is not examined in detail. Inquiry would require classification, authorization, and justification. None are issued. The absence of discussion is interpreted as closure. Training continues. Instruction manuals are updated incrementally, their revisions subtle enough to avoid drawing attention to the circumstances that prompted them. Lessons are absorbed indirectly, stripped of context. The system learns without acknowledging what it has. Time creates distance. The order fades from immediate relevance, replaced by newer instructions moving through the same channel. The structure remains efficient. Authority continues to descend. Compliance continues to rise to meet it. Those who were not present will never encounter the order directly. They will inherit its consequences in abstract form, embedded in revised doctrine and altered capacity. The origin of these changes will not be emphasized. The structure does not preserve memory unless required. The system stabilizes. It always does. Another order is issued. It follows the same routes, uses the same language, engages the same mechanism. It is received, acknowledged, recorded. The process resumes without reference to what came before. There is no reckoning. There is no pause. The structure remains intact, prepared to transmit certainty once again. The order that failed no longer exists as an object of attention. Only the system does, and it is ready.